I would argue that any slave who is loyal is too loyal. But today I'll tell you about a man who treated his owners like family and was supposedly treated with that same amount of love and respect. Neptune Small was born into enslavement on September 15th, 1831 on Retreat Plantation on St. Simon's Island, Georgia. Owned by the King family, Retreat was a 2,000 plus acre cotton plantation. It was one of the most important and efficient plantations in the region. And luckily the King family at least somewhat had the heart to treat people like people. Today you can still go to Retreat and see the ruins of the slave hospital that Neptune's mother worked all her life. Enslaved people were also afforded their own gardens, chickens, and kitchens to at least be able to live off of the land they worked all of their lives for little or no pay. Fortunately for Neptune, as a young child he was chosen to be a companion for the sons of the King family. He created strong bonds with all of them, but most importantly Henry, who was only about 5 months older than Neptune, so they ended up living their whole life together, and Neptune was even able to learn how to read and write right alongside Henry. Now, I don't think the King family deserves any type of props or praise for this. At the end of the day, they didn't do anything but extend a few basic privileges to the people they owned as property. Unfortunately for those times, Neptune and all of his family were extremely privileged, and for this he seemed to be very grateful and loving towards the family. Loving enough to go along with his best friend, Henry, to the Civil War as a manservant. Neptune marched across the country for almost 2 years with Henry, even occasionally being used as a spy for the Confederates until one night in 1862, a message needed to be taken across the battlefield at the Battle of Fredericksburg. Nobody wanted to take it, but Henry was somebody who was all for the cause and decided to even volunteer. Henry ended up being one of the 608 Confederates who died defending their right to enslave Africans during the Battle of Fredericksburg. I would hope that Neptune had a decision to make here. Do I go 100 miles north and become a free man? Or do I go find my best friend? Neptune ended up choosing to go and find his best friend. He crawled between dead bodies and bullets flying over his head to eventually find Henry's body there, laying dead. Then Neptune carried the body all the way back to the post, where him and a few others then made a box for Henry's body. He took the body in the box to Richmond, Virginia to get a proper coffin and then all the way down to Savannah, Georgia to meet a few other members of the King family for a temporary burial. Neptune had the humanity and love to travel over 500 miles south to give his owner a burial when he could have gone 100 miles north and been a free man. I know for a fact if things were the other way around and Henry was faced with this decision, he would have never risked his life to even try and save Neptune's. Once he came back to Georgia, the King family offered Neptune to stay at home until the war was over. And even though only a month later Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation declaring Neptune and all of his family free, he decided to leave his family again to be a servant for Henry's younger brother Richard until the Confederates surrendered many months later. When I was first taught this story, they said that the King family rewarded Neptune for all his great love and bravery by giving him some land. And then Neptune just loved St. Simon's Island so much. He had such a good piece of land that he decided it was better off if the city owned it. Of course, they would know much better things to do with it than he would. The city decided to turn it into a Neptune Park in his honor, somewhere where today rich white people can go and have a cookout, go to the pool or play mini golf, and someone like me from Brunswick take the occasional trip to the beach to see a completely different side of America just a couple minutes away. But the Kings had just lost a war. The father and one of the sons had just died and their whole plantation was destroyed. How would they be in any position financially to just give away land, and especially to give away land to an African? Neptune was actually able to stand up on his own 2 feet. On October 17th, 1884, Neptune spent $102 for 8 acres of land on St. Simon's Island, a few blocks from where Neptune Park stands today. Even before that, he spent $78 on 13 acres in my hometown of Brunswick, Georgia. Today, the Retreat Plantation is a part of Sea Island Resort, a Forbes 5-star resort where Tiger Woods comes to play golf and George Bush can have a meeting with world leaders. For a family like mine, Sea Island is somewhere where you can find a job that'll pay you more than anywhere in the city will, as long as you stay within their image of not being too black, and you never cause any trouble with any of your white bosses or customers. A lot of African descendants who live here still refer to it as the plantation. Neptune was lucky enough to live 40 years as a free man. Instead of picking up the King family's name, he chose the name Small. He was married twice, first to Isla Smith, who gave birth to Leonora, Latoria, Clementine, and Eleanor. After Isla's death, he remarried to a woman named Charlotte, who gave birth to his children Cornelia and Clarence. What would you have done in Neptune's shoes? Do you think he had a case of the Stockholm Syndrome, when the abused begins to look favorably at his abuser? Or maybe Neptune never looked at the King family as an abuser, as he was likely taught this was just the way things were, and he was born to be in a subservient position, as were his parents and grandparents. Neptune went to rest on August 10th, 1907, and he was buried on the same plantation he was born. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'll be back with a new video every week. And remember, we have to rebuild education in order to rebuild the community.